And since we have all those data, one thing that we can do with it is to directly consume it like this, the way we've done it here, or we are going to do it slightly differently. I'm going to show you a different way that you can do it today, where one, you can choose to deserialize all those data that are coming from the database. You can deserialize it into a model. I will show you what that looks like shortly. And from there, you can use those properties from those class, or that class rather, and use it directly in your test automation. So we sort of refactored this code a bit yesterday, and we're just going to do some more refactoring today just to make the code look a lot more cleaner. Because if you look at this test 3, now it does look like a lot of things are going on here. And it looked like the code isn't like too clean, or it's not all that clean. It looks all over the place. So we are going to tidy it up today. One, by refactoring the code and pushing some bits to page objects. And that's what we're going to be covering before we move over to BDD. So the first thing I want to do here is to focus on our database. So the data that is coming from our database. If you notice yesterday, we already have a method that is helping us retrieve those data from the database. And we are now consuming those data by first, we are navigating to a URL, which is a data that is coming from the database. And we are sending the first value here, which is my name, sitting in the text input area. So let me just open the database here. So here's the database on table web form, and we have a URL, and that's the value in the URL. We have a text input, we have a password, text area, drop-down data list, and range. So all these data are the data we are going to be using in our test automation. Right? So, like I said, we already have the data coming through. What we now want to do is we don't want to be using it this way. Instead, we want to deserialize it into, fields or properties, as you call it. So I have already done it, but I'm going to show you an example of how this is done. So inside of this test 3, I'm going to write deserialize right here. And then I'm going to write var, let's say connect or DB, whatever you want to call it. Remember your variables, you can give it whatever name you want to give your variable. So if I say var data from DB, something like that, and you say reader dot select. Now, this method called select is a method that helps us to do what is called querying again. I did mention that yesterday. So if I use select and I'll type X, now X is also a variable. So you can use whatever variable you want, any character or name, anything. I can choose to type row, I can choose to type D, I can choose J, whatever. So let's just type DB, and I'll say DB. Now, what I've done here is an exact replica of what you're seeing above here. Now, the only difference that we want, the only thing we want to do differently is to deserialize all the data that is coming from reader, which is the database. We want to deserialize it into a class. Now, how do you create a model class? Now, I'm going to show you. I've already done it to save our time. There is a model here. Can you see a folder here called model? And then I created a class called column names. That's the name I gave to it. You can give your class any name. You just need to make sure that you give a name that someone can easily relate with. So I'm calling this column name. And why I gave it column name is because all these columns here, they do have a name. So the second column on the list here says URL, text input, password, text area, drop down, data list, and range. And I am creating an exact replica of each columns to represent fields or properties inside of this class called column names. So you can see I have ID, I have URL, text input, password, text area, dropdown, data list, and range. And that represents all this ID, URL, text input, password, up until range. And the next thing I want to do with it is to go back to my query here, and I'm going to say new of call name. So you can see I have access to call name. And what I want to do with it is to open my brace, and I can easily start accessing all the fields directly in here by pressing spacebar. Now you can see I have access to all the fields. So the first one on the list is ID. I'll say ID equals, I want to equal ID to another value that is coming obviously from the database. So this is my field. Currently, it has no value. It's defaulted to 0 or nothing, string or empty. So this is actually an int. So this is 0 at the moment, except I save a value into this ID. It will remain as 0. So what I want to do now is to say DB of the column name, and I'll type ID, and I'll put a comma. And then because it's an integer, I'm going to typecast it and put int here. Okay. So if you hover your mouse on ID, you can see it says int. That's why I am typecasting. So this, we call this casting in programming. And that helps me to convert whatever value that is coming from the database to make sure it's being delivered to me as a number. And the second thing I'm going to do here is URL. So I'll say URL equals, I'm going to typecast this as well to say string of DB, and then I will pass my URL here. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for all of them, all the properties on the list, just to make it faster. So the next one will be text input, I believe. So remember, I'm taking it one after the other. ID, URL, text input, password. So I will copy this text input and place it right here. Here will be password, and I'll copy that as well and paste it here. And the next should be text area. I'll copy it and put it here. And after that, I believe is drop down. After text area is drop down, then data list. So I'll copy the drop down and place it here. Data lists. I'll copy that and put here. And finally is range. Now I'll copy that and place here. Now I'm getting error on this one because if you hover your mouse on range, you can see it says int. The return type is an int. So I should change this to an integer. Now you can see everything looks perfectly fine, no errors. So if I run this test now, at this very point, the deserialization is going to happen and it will save all the data that is coming from the database right here in line 88. Is going to save them into a variable called data from DB, right? And what that allows me to do now is this. If I put a breakpoint right in line 11, sorry, line 100, no, let me put in 102, and I'll quickly save the changes. I'll right click and run the test in debug mode, just to show you that the deserialization has happened, and I can now start using my fields or my properties to, pass the data that I want to pass within my test automation. Okay, so if I hover my mouse on data from DB, can you see we have count equals 2? And if I expand it and go to the results view, now you see all these data has been deserialized. Now this simply means that ID is now shown as 1, password is shown as my secure password. So all I need to use within my test are these fields. And by using these fields, I'm going to be getting these values, right? So if I want to use the fields in place of the way I'm currently doing it now, what I need to do to navigate to a URL, I just need the variable here. I'll replace it there. And I'll put a dot and select first, and I will have access to URL. Can you see, first of all, that it makes a lot of sense to sort of have strongly typed variables. I believe they call these strongly typed variables, so that we know exactly what we are getting out of the deserialization that has happened. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one, we can go ahead and do the exact same thing using data from DB. Data from DB.first, and I will have access to, I believe it's text inputs. And I'll do the exact same thing for the rest of them. Now, I'm just showing you this as an example. I've done it in another a test, which I'm going to show you shortly. But I just wanted to show you how, that came about. And since I've done my deserialization, obviously, if I run the test again, let me put a breakpoint here. You see that I'm able to navigate to URL perfectly fine because the deserialization has happened. So let's wait for the browser to open, and you'll see that it will navigate to, and you see that it has navigated to the URL, and the value is directly coming from the field that we saved this data to. So this is the data coming from the database, and we've saved it into this field, and we are now able to use it to navigate directly to URL. And that kind of helps us to reduce the code that we are writing. And similarly, on this second part as well, if I step over and I do the same thing, you see that I have entered hello Selenium, which is the exact value that is coming from the text inputs of row 1. So having said that, I'm just going to finish off the test quickly so that I can get into the second part. Right, the second thing I want to do or show you guys here is page object. Now, to do page objects, let me just scroll down to tests, the new test, which I have added here. So you can see the exact same thing I just did now. That's what is here. And you can see I've done it slightly differently here. Just naming conventions is slightly different. So, and I've tagged it here as well. So don't worry too much if you're going to if you are still unsure what I'm doing, I'm going to push this code to the repository so that you'll be able to clone it yourself and make good use of it. Sunji, I can see you've got your hands raised.
You know, yeah, sorry, you're not recording.
Yes, the recording is going on online, but I can do another one actually. But the recording is going on online right now.
Sorry, just a quick one. For the DB to work with after the code has been pushed to the repository, I guess everyone will need to have the database running before that can work fine.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so but for the DB, when installing it, are we supposed to choose server only or full installation and stuff?
The last option says custom.
Yeah, custom. Should we
Yes.
choose that one?
Yeah, if you select custom, and the rest of them, I believe, is the default option.
Okay.
So when you get to the point where you which options are you going to install, you need to obviously select MySQL Server, MySQL Workbench,
application, document, and whatnot.
Yeah, I think we can have a look at that one later so that
Sure,
you do
sure.
it properly, right?
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
let's carry on. Now, so we've done our deserialization and we've navigated to URL. The next thing I want to show you right here in line 155, to do page object, the first thing you want to start off with page object is to understand what page object is actually. Now, page object simply means you want to create classes that represent a page. And why do we create classes that represent a page? So that we can store all the locators that we found on those pages on the web browser. We want to store them in those respective classes that we are creating to represent the pages. I hope that makes sense. So if we have 2, 3, 4, 5 pages on the web browser, we are going to also create 2 or 3 or 4, 5 pages to represent those exact page. We'll give them those names, and then we'll identify locators from each of these pages and store them in the classes so that we are directly using the locators that we found on each of these pages. Now, in our case, we only have one page right now that we're automating. I'll get to a point where we can now switch to the second page, and we'll add the second page so that we can do a validation on that. So having said that, you have a glimpse of what page objects is, because it's all about creating classes that represent pages. So what you want to do is add a folder in your project. So if you right click, go to add and new folder. That's exactly how I added this page object. And then inside of the folder, you want to add your first class. Now, it's always very good for you to organize your project, like have some of your classes that are similar in certain folders, just so that it's easier to understand. So anyone who is working in the same project with you will say, okay, so these are all the page objects. Then they will know exactly where to go to. So it's all about ease of use. The page object architectural design allows us to manage our projects a lot more easier and better. So I went ahead to add the first class. So to add a class again, if you right click, go to add and select class. Right? That's all I did. Sorry, let me mute. So if you add that class there, just like I've done, you see something like this. Now, the code which I added inside of this class, I can quickly do that again so that you can see what I've done. So I'm going to delete this after. So I'll call this test page object, or let me call it home page. So when you add your class for the first time for your page object, it's going to look something like this, an empty page or an empty class. And the first thing you always want to add is your constructor. So I'll put a comment here and say constructor. Now, what are constructors? Constructor is any access modifier that directly contains or has the name of the class. What do I mean? Access modifiers are public or can be private, protected, and all of that. But in this case, I'm going to say public, and then it will have the exact name of the class. Can you see we have a public class and the name of the class is homepage. So I'm going to type homepage here, and that's the name of my class. So what I've done here now is to create a constructor because it has an access modifier and it has the name of the class. And inside this constructor, what I want to do is to initialize objects that I'm going to be using inside of my page objects. And one of the objects that I'm going to be using is iWebDriver. So I'm going to type iWebDriver and call it, I'll just call it driver. And I will add another iWebDriver here and call it WebDriver. And the next thing I want to do is to initialize the driver. Otherwise, you're going to be getting what we call null reference error. So when an object is not properly initialized, you get null reference. So I need to initialize this object. So I'll say driver equals WebDriver. So this object has been initialized now. I have the liberty to now go ahead and use the driver. So my constructor is done. The next thing I want to do is to create or add all my elements, which I found on the page. So I'm going to go over to our unit test, and I will copy. If you look here, this is the first element we use in interacting with the components on the page. I'll go over here and I'll paste it there, right? And then I'm getting error because my driver here is correct, but if you hover your mouse on it, it says that a field initializer cannot reference the non-static field method or property homepage.driver. Now, what it means is that to have access to this driver, we need to tell, like point it in the direction of where it's coming from. But after declaring my object and my variable, I have equal to and driver. Now, in a normal unit test, this would have been fine, but in page objects here in Visual Studio C#, you need to convert your equal to sign into a lambda expression. I did mention this in our in the presentation. If you look right here, there is lambda. Okay. So this is very important in when you're doing programming. You also need to have an understanding of what it does. So by putting lambda, the error disappeared. And then the next thing I want to do is to now actually use this locator. So to use this locator, I'm going to write a method. And the method I'm going to write will help me to use this locator. So I'll call it public void. I'll say interact with elements. And I can also use lambda expression here because it's going to be one line of code. I will show you how to refactor that later on. So one line of code, and I'll call this variable here, this particular one. I'll copy it and I'll paste it here. Now, the problem with this is that because the return type of my elements is a read-only collection. Now, there are two ways I can handle this. I can either make the return type of my method a read-only collection so that it matches this, or I can go about it a different way. So the easiest thing to do right here is, let's make it a read-only collection. And you can see that the error disappeared. So that's the easiest to do. And then if I go back to my test, I can now create the object of this class, this particular class here. The name is called homepage. I'll create the object of that class in my test suite so that I can make use of this method. And I'll show you that right now. I'll copy homepage, go over here, and let's say, for instance, I comment out this code, right? And then I want to create objects of my class. So I'll paste the homepage. I'll give it a variable name, homepage. I'll say equals new of homepage. And then this particular instance of the class is requesting for what we passed in the home page. So if I go back to the home page, can you see that this constructor here has iWebDriver, WebDriver? Therefore, in our test, it is saying that until I pass that driver before the error would disappear. Another way you can verify it is if you hover your mouse on home page, it will tell you what is required. So all I need to now do is to pass my driver, since driver already exists right there. And as you can see, the error disappeared. Now, the next thing I want to do is to use the variable of my home page to call the method which I created in this home page, this particular method here. I'm going to use the variable home page. I'll say dot interact with elements. And that element, interact with element, is a method. So I need to get rid of the previous one I was using here. And can you see everything looked perfectly fine? No more issues. So I can copy that and replace this one. I'll replace this as well. I'll do exact same thing here. I'll do exact same thing here. And can you see we are now using the method that is coming from our page objects, right? That's looking perfectly fine. Now, I'm still not happy with what I'm looking at because it still feels like it's all over the place, right? So the only way I can make it look more presentable to the eye is by converting the method which I have inside of the page object. I can convert it to what we call chains method. Chain, C-H-A-I-N, chains method. And how do I do that? I can go back to home page and I will convert this to use block body method. And instead of returning the list of elements directly here, what I would do is I'll say var list equals list of elements. And then I'm going to change and change it to this, return this. Now, anytime you want to use this keyword, return this, this is a little bit advanced, guys. but I'm showing it to you so you are aware of it. Anytime you use this keyword, it means you want to return back this method to have access back to another method within this class or the same method inside this class. And for the error to go away, I need to copy the name of the class and replace the return type here, like that. So what I've done here now is to convert this method into what is called chains method. Therefore, to do that right now, or to use it inside of our test, I don't need this first anymore. But it's still going to cause me issues because I need to structure it properly in such a way that, I'm not going to be getting error. So since I'm going to be entering, doing a send keys, why don't I copy this send keys and take it into my method and probably do something like this, dot send keys, or dot element arts. And actually I can remove this. And in my test, because some of them obviously will identify the first index of the element on the page, and some will identify the second, some will identify the third. So if I lock the code to only identify the first one by typing first here, it will only work for the first element, but I want it to work for all of them. Therefore, what I'll do is I'll use element art. And then I'm going to parameterize this method to use index such that I can pass my index directly here. Okay. And then for the value which I want to send, I'm going to also parameterize that one by typing string value, and I'll pass that value here. Now, my method is complete now. If I go back to the test, I can remove this first. I will also remove the send keys. And what I'll do, I'll copy this value. I will replace it in here. So hovering my mouse on the method here says I need 2 parameters or arguments. So the first one is the index of 0, which is the first. And the second one is my value. And now you see that the error has disappeared there. And then we can go ahead and do the same thing that we've done now for the rest of the locators and so on. So since I've explained that, I'm now going to show you what I did just to save our time. And one of the benefits of doing this again is because I can now go ahead and connect this method to another method again, or to the same method within that class. So what I'll do, I'll just put a dot and I'll call the interact element again. And let's say I go ahead and pass 1 here, and I can pass another data there, and I can do this for as many times as possible and just keep going. So something like this, it will carry on like that. And that will help me to clean up everything that I have here and sort of shrink them down into one method. So I'll now show you the one that I did, which will look exactly the same as what you're seeing here now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this class since I already have it I'll delete it. And I'll get rid of, I think I already deleted it here. So this is the one that I did just to save our time, because it's going to take a little bit of time to explain some of these things properly. So I called this method, this unit test with page object. And as usual, we are opening the browser here. And the second line of code, we are maximizing the browser. And right here, we are retrieving data from the database. And here we are deserializing all the data from the database. And then using the variable of the deserialization, we are navigating to URL by using the strongly type here. And then the next thing, we are creating the object of our page objects. You can see I have a page object here called web form, and this is what it looks inside here. Again, this is my constructor, and this is my elements. So you remember this element. This is the element that identifies all the locators, like a couple of the locators on the page. And then this one is for the dropdown, hence why I'm giving it the exact same name. Dropdown, list of elements, slider. So it kind of tells you exactly what they are for, right? So naming conventions are also very important when you are working as an automation tester. So after that, I now have methods. I just showed you exactly how I created this chains method in the other class, which I just deleted. So this is the same thing I'm doing here. So you can see that the return type on this method is web form page, which is the exact name of the class. And then I am indexing, like parameterizing the index at which I want to interact with on the page. So by putting index here, it helps me to set the index for whomever I want to, like which components I want to interact with. And if you look at it here, the very first one says index of 0. And I'll come to this enum in a minute. These are just tips and tricks of how to clean up your code. So the first index of 0, if you hover your mouse on it, it tells you it is 0. And then here is my value. And for the second one, index of 1, and this is my value. For the third one, index of 2, and that's my value. Now you can see how all of them has been chained together. Now compare this code that has been chained together, compare it with this whole lot. You can see that there's a big difference. So that's one of the ways that you can actually clean up your code and make it look more presentable. And then finally, I'll show you the enum just now. So inside a folder called model, I added another class. And in that class, I added an enum, which I called label. I have another one at the bottom here, an enum which I called num. And this enum helps me to it helps me to identify different numbers using keywords. So the first number I'm about to identify here is 0. And I'm using the exact wording to represent the value. 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. So the actual value you are going to be retrieving are these ones. The ones you're seeing over here, the words are just the ones representing them, okay? So similar thing I'm doing right here. These are the exact values, but these ones are the ones representing them. So that's how I'm using them here. num.0 and num.5, num.6, and so on. So that's the fastest way I can explain page objects. I mean, what you've seen me do here right now. Yeah, so that's the fastest way I can do it so that we can save a lot of time. Because if I start dissecting it, step by step, it's going to take us a little bit longer to talk about it. So what I'm going to do now is to run the test so you can see that everything I've done here works perfectly fine. So the first thing, just a quick reminder, is deserialization. Deserializing all the data coming from the database into a model. And this is the model. This model here. I'm deserializing all the data into these properties so that I can then have access to them here, have access to them here and here. Okay. And then the second thing I did was to create a page object. And after creating the page object, added my locators in there and wrote a method which I can have access to in my test. And for me to be able to consume those methods, I had to create the object of that page object. And using the variable of the object, I'm able to call those methods. So that's interact with elements. And because I've chained them together, you can see that I'm able to use one variable to call the first method, chain it to the second method, chain it to the third method, and so on. And you will see that there is a slight difference here. There's another one here called interact with dropdown, and the final one, interact with range. So all of them exist in here. So interact with elements, interact with dropdown, interact with range. So I can now go ahead and run my test for you to see. And I deliberately added 1,000 milliseconds so that you can see when the test is running, you can see it being entered one after the other. So wait for the browser to open. So the browser has opened and navigated to URL. Can you see it's entered the text input, password, text area, selected the drop-down, drop data list, and it's moved the range from the middle to that point, and our test passed. So looking at what I've done here right now, it looks a lot cleaner compared to the old one. And that's the level you want to, attain. You want to, like start learning how to get your code to this level so that people whom you are working with as well will be able to relate and easily understand what you've done. Okay, so that's that for page objects and the refactoring. The next thing I'm going to show us now quickly before we go into BDD, which is the main thing for today, is to push this code to Git repository so you can have access to it and be able to look at it yourself. So the first thing you want to do to push your code to Git repository is to come over to this place called Git change. If you're not currently seeing Git change here, what you want to do is come to view, and can you see the second option on the list is Git changes. If you click on it, it will be present here for you to see. And then when you switch over to this tab, you see two options: create Git repository or clone a repository. We are not trying to clone a repository. When you clone a repository, what you're trying to do is to clone someone's project that already exists in Git. But we are trying to create our own repository and push our code to Git. So what we need to do is to click Create Git repository. And then this window opens. Now, the next thing you want to make sure you do is try and log into, try and log in on the browser. Let me quickly bring the browser over here. And if I type Git, so you want to make sure that you are already registered on Git to be able to push your code to Git. So you can see that I do have an account, not currently logged in right now. So I already have an account. I believe it's called, yep. So you can see I'm currently logged in now. Now, when you are logged in, or if you have an account, you can easily connect your Visual Studio to Git directly. So by clicking on Git changes and you come over to create Git repository, this window will open. And the next thing that will happen, automatically Visual Studio most times will detect that you have an account and you're currently logged in automatically. Most times that always happens. But if it doesn't, for whatever reason, all you need to do is there'll be an option here to say sign in. And if you click on it, it will open a browser and you just need to log into your Git and it will populate all these fields for you. So you can see that these ones are populated for me. So I don't need to do anything anymore. The only thing I'll probably want to change is this. The validity, I want to change it from private to public so that every one of you can have access to it. And then I just need to push by clicking this button, create and push. Now, what I'm doing right now can also be done via the command line, but I'm showing it to you in a much more visual, in a way that is visual, so you can see exactly what you're doing. So if I click create and push, what you now notice is it will start, creating the repository, and it will push all the codes to the repository. So right now you can see that there's a message here. It says your task will complete running in the background. And a message has also displayed here, which says a new Git repository has been created for you in so and so. So if I click on this, it should open my Gits for me to see here. But what I want to do now is to go over to my repository and see where I pushed it to. Okay, so this is the wrong account. Let me sign out of that and sign into a different one.
The name says God's time.
Right, God's time. Oh, where is it? Where has it gone to? Oh, there we go. So that's the repository we've just pushed now. You can see that it says 2 minutes ago, updated. So if I now click on this repository here, it will show me all the folders and classes which I have in my Visual Studio currently. So you can see we have a model, we have a page object, test data, DB Connect, test suite, which corresponds with what is here. Model, page object, test data, DB Connect, test suite, right? And then you can start doing, different things with it. Someone can now come over here. Let's say you want to clone the repository right now. All you need to do is, let me copy this URL first and paste it on the channel for everyone to have access to. So I'll paste it there. So it's on the channel right now for you to see. And then all you want to do is navigate to that URL and come over here. Can you see there is a button here called code? If you click on it, now you can copy this URL that you're seeing here by clicking this icon. Copy it and come over to Visual Studio. If you select File, and can you see there's something here called Clone a Repository? Alternatively, if you navigate back to the Start window of Visual Studio, on this very first page, you can click Clone a Repository, and you'll be presented with this page where you can now paste the URL for the repository here, and then go ahead and clone it. Now, if you, for whatever reason, get this error, just maybe type something like maybe a different name in here and click clone. So all I added here was an extra character, Z, and click clone. So it will clone the repository for you, and you see exact same thing that I'm seeing here right now. I hope that one is clear. So go ahead, clone the repository whenever you're free, so you can see all the codes that I have added in the project. And that's it for our unit tests. The next stage I'm going into now is BDD. So I'm going to quickly close all these classes. And it would have been nice for me to show you how to create a behavioral-driven project from scratch. I mean, it's still going to be the exact same thing, but I want to create the project right inside here so that we can do the exact, like use the locators that we've used before. We can use them in our BDD. So what I'll do is I'll collapse this project. And on the Solution Explorer, I'm going to right click and I'll go to Add and I'll say New Projects. Now, this is also to show you that you can add as many projects as possible inside of one solution. And to create a BDD style project, what you want to do is to select SpecFlow. Remember, I mentioned at the beginning that we use SpecFlow for BDD projects framework, or you can use what is called Rec and Roll, which is a new extension that does the exact same thing as SpecFlow. So I'm going to select SpecFlow and I'll click Next. And I'll give this SpecFlow a name. Let's say Masterclass SpecFlow Projects. And then I want to save the project in the same location, which is the repo folder. Alternatively, I can add it to the same projects. So I can also store it inside of this project here. I mean, the choice is mine, but let's go ahead and just save it separately. So I'll click Create. And then I can choose which framework version I want to use. Again, you can see that I only have access to version 6.0, which is the max on SpecFlow. And I'm sticking with NUnit again instead of MS Test or XUnit. So I'm going to stick with NUnit. and then I'll click create. So our BDD project has been created, or SpecFlow project has been created. As you can see on the right-hand side, the Solution Explorer is right there. And by default, yes, go ahead, Owen. I can see you've got your hands.
Yes. I just wanted to ask, how did you add the SpecFlow again to the same solution that we used before?
Yeah,
I just missed that button.
So you want to right click on the solution.
Yeah.
Right here, you right click, you go to add new project, and you select SpecFlow, you click next, and select the other bits and click create.
Okay.
And then it will be displayed here. So right now you can see we have both of them here. One is the SpecFlow and the other one is the other units test that we looked at previously. So inside of this SpecFlow project, you can see that by default, a couple of folders has been created for us. We have driver folder, we have features, we have step definition and support. Now, they are trying to get you off to a good start so that you can start using these folders. And another thing that they've added for us is a feature file. If I double click on it, this feature file opens, right? And then they've added a step definition as well. Now, the step definition is not really doing anything at the moment. All they've added here is that some set of informations just to get you off started. But where you want to start from is the feature file. So I'm going to save these changes, build my solution so that I know that everything is ready to use. And now, after building my solution, you can now see that the colors for each numbers changed, 50, 70, 120. Now, the first thing you need to understand about BDD is the structure of the project and what a feature file is used for. A feature file is pretty much an Excel spreadsheet where you are writing test cases. That's all it is for. You want to write all your test cases there, and then you're going to automate those test cases. Now, what this implies is I can copy this scenario and I can duplicate it as many times as possible. Each of them representing different test cases. So I can call this 2, this 3, and 4. So you can see I have 4 different test cases here. And we use the keyword scenario to represent test cases. Test case 1, 2, 3, and 4, or scenario 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, each scenario has a title. The same way the feature has a name. Now, you can create as many feature files as possible in a BDD style project. So I can have even up to 10, 100, 200 in here under this feature folder. And inside each feature file, you can have as many scenarios as possible. Now, remember that each scenario is going to be doing slightly different thing. Let's say, for instance, you want to automate add 2 numbers. Now, what does this mean? You want to add 50 plus 70 to give you 120. Now, what is your scenario 2 going to look like? Your scenario 2 could be subtract 2 numbers. And let's say I have something like 100 here, and I put 50 as the second number, and then the third number, the result is going to be 50. So when you minus 50 from 100, it's going to give you 50. That's for scenario 2. And scenario 3 can be something else. Let's say you want to multiply, or let's say you want to divide in your third scenario. So you are mimicking a typical calculator. Okay? So since we get the gist of what the scenarios are like, I'm going to remove all the other scenarios. Now, another thing you need to understand about a scenario is that the title of your scenario has to be unique so that you can pick that up in your test explorer. So if I come over to the test explorer here, you can see that I have a test to run available. Add 2 numbers. Now, if I change this to calculator function and save my changes, if you go over to the test explorer, it's going to change here after I build my solution. Now the name is going to change here from add 2 numbers to calculator function. And you see the name has changed. So that's the reason why we uniquely name our scenarios. The third thing that you need to understand about a BDD style project, especially when you have a feature file, is that the way SpecFlow has been designed, you are meant to understand Gherkin syntax. Gherkin syntax includes given, when, and then. Now, we don't have much time to explain everything word for word, but I'm just going to touch on a few things so that we can proceed. Gherkin syntax, you can use these keywords, given, when, and then. And your first given syntax, what it allows you to do is to initialize your scenario journey. It's going to initialize your scenario journey, while your when is going to perform actions on a page. So if you remember during our unit test, some of the interactions that we did where we navigated to URL, we typed into the text input field, typed into the text area selected from dropdown. This is where your when syntax shines. So that's the way they've created it. They want all your action steps to be performed in the when step. And that's why you are seeing when the 2 numbers are added here. And finally, then. The then syntax allows us to perform what is called a validation or a verification, or you are confirming a result, that the result is actually what it should be. So meaning if I add 50 to 70, 100%, I should be confirming that that is 120. So if I put 121 here, we are expecting it to fail because 50 plus 70 should give you 120. And that's what your then steps are for, because they are assertions. And inside of these then steps, what we do is that we write assertion steps, where you see something like assert.equals something. Okay, so that's what your scenarios are. And that's how you can use your Gherkin syntax. The final thing that you can do with your Gherkin syntax is AND. And what AND does is that it is a connection or a continuation of any of these other syntax. Your AND can be used with a given, your AND can be used with a when, and your AND can be used with a then step. It's just allowing you to continue something. So for the given step, we are initializing the projects. Take, for instance, we want to navigate to a URL or we want to open a browser. That's an initialization. And for the when step, you want to perform an action. Let's say when the 2 numbers are added, you can also add something to say, and the second and fourth number are added. So you are continuing something. That's where you're using AND step. And then for the validation, then the result is 120. And if you want to use the AND step as well, you can say, and the result is an integer, meaning it's a number, not a string, things like that. You can add as many AND steps as possible. So, but the key major syntax are given, when, and then. I hope this makes sense. So now to proceed, how do we automate a browser using this scenario or this Gherkin syntax? I'm going to copy the existing scenario and I'll paste it there. And I'm going to say complete a web form. And the first thing I'll have here is given I am on web form page. And the next thing I want to do when I arrive on the web form page is when I complete the form. Sorry, and I complete the form. Actually, this should be a when because it's an action step. And then the next thing I want to do here is and I click this submit button. Then my form is submitted. That's an example of what we can do with the Gherkin syntax to write our scenario journey based on what we've been automating so far. So I will navigate to this web page, fill out all this information, click the submit button, and as soon as I click the submit button, I will see form submitted. Okay. Now, the next thing you want to do, if you notice that the color of these steps are slightly different from this color. Why? Because these colors already exist, meaning that the step definition that is connected to these steps currently exists, while these ones don't exist. That's why they are in purple. If you want to know that a step is existing, all you need to do is to right-click anywhere on the step and go to definition or press F12. If I click on it now, it will take me to the step definition. So you can see the cursor is blinking here. And you might be wondering, how did this connection happen? Is with the help of these binding attributes, which connects a step definition to a feature file scenario. So what we want to do now is to generate our own steps so that the colors will change from purple to this sort of color. And to do that, I'm going to select everything, right-click, and I'll select define step. Now, there's one thing I'm going to clarify here. If you are generating the step for the first time, it's okay for you to use define steps. But if you are going to be adding the step to an already generated step definition, I will advise you, if you still want to select define step, don't go ahead to click create. Instead, copy to clipboard, which is what I'm going to do right now. I'll copy it because I want to put these steps inside of this already existing step definition, just for us to move a little faster. So I'll paste them right there. You can see I have all those steps now. And then you will also notice that when I copied them, it showed me exactly what each of these steps will look like. Can you see right here? There. It showed me exactly what those steps would look like. Hence why you are seeing all this. So I'm just going to clean up all this code quickly, because we don't need these ones. Actually, let me go ahead and delete them. We don't need it. Right, so you can see it's looking a lot cleaner now. And I want to get rid of these ones as well. We don't need them. Our focus is on the web scenario. And then it's still showing that the color is purple because we need to build our solution so that they are recognizing the step definition that we generated. So I've just gone to build and selected build solution. And now can you see the color has changed? So this means now that I can right click on any of the step definition and navigate to that step. Can you see the color? The cursor is blinking somewhere there. If I want to navigate to this last step here, if I right click on it and go to definition, can you see the cursor is blinking right here? So that tells me now that the connection has been established. Now, the next thing I want to do is to start typing my code. So since we already have those code, what I will do, I will copy these codes. Yeah, I'll copy the code from here. So to initialize our browser, we have, actually, let me use this one. And I'll transfer it over here. And then it's going to complain about the iWebDriver and Chrome driver. And remember that in each project, you have to install the API package, which you're going to need for navigating to a browser and interacting with the browser. So I can do this really quickly by selecting this drop down here. And I'll go over to install package selenium.webdriver, which again, if you remember at the beginning, I said if you select WebDriver directly, then you're going to end up installing 2 different API packages. Meanwhile, you can install selenium.support and you will have access to selenium.webdriver and selenium.chrome driver. But I mean, let's pretend as if, you know, we don't know about Selenium support. We can just go ahead and install selenium.webdriver. And it will do its thing and quickly add it right there at the top. As you can see, the color has changed. We'll do the exact same thing for Chrome driver. And you see, both of them are available now. Now, the next thing I want to resolve here is my database. But before I resolve the database, let me comment it out and quickly run the test so that you can see that it's working. So I'll come back over here to the complete web form, to the test explorer. And I can right click and run my test. So what I'm expecting to see now is for the browser to just open and nothing else. Actually, to open and maximize the browser. Because we've only added 2 lines of code here. There we go. And there we go. So the browser opened and maximized. So if I manually close it down, you can see that the test passed. So the only thing that we haven't done is to navigate to URL. And I'm going to quickly do that as well by resolving this DB Connect. Now, let's take, for instance, the code for the DB currently exists in another project. And that project is sitting right next to our project here. We can have access to this code by connecting this project to our current existing project. How do you do that? You want to right click on your dependency of the project which you're currently working on. You right click, you go to add project reference. If I click on that, a window will open and it will show me other projects that are existing within this solution. And if I select it and click OK, so now that I've selected it, I should now have access to all the codes from the other projects. So I'm going to quickly build my solution. Actually, I can right click here and build my solution. Right, and I'll go ahead and add the reference for the DB. Where am I not seeing it? That should be correct now. Using masterclass. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, let me not waste time with this. I'll just comment this one out or delete it. And what I'll do is I'll go over to the test suite and I will copy, navigate to URL and come back here, and I will paste that over here. Right, so at this point, we should be able to navigate to URL from here. And then the next thing on the, when I complete the form, I should be able to even use my page objects to be able to action out all this. But let's make everything a lot simpler. When I complete the form, what I want to do is to copy all these codes. And I can paste them in here. And you'll notice that driver is throwing error. Now, this is because the driver that we've initialized here is only accessible within this method. Therefore, if we want to use it inside of another method, even though both of them exist in the same class, we need to globalize it. So I'm just going to bring this out quickly. And now you can see that all the errors has disappeared. So there is no more error. And then I need to click the submit button. So let me quickly come over here on the browser and identify the submit button, just like we did yesterday, 2 days ago. So I will copy this one. And this time around, I'll be using a CSS selector. And then I will type driver the find element here by.css, no class name, CSS selector, and I'll paste that there. And I'll say .click. And then after clicking the submit button here, I want to validate that I am seeing this message that says form submitted. So I'll quickly identify this locator as well. You can see it's a H1 tag name. So this is a good opportunity to actually use H1 as one of the locator strategies to identify something on the page. So if I add driver.find elements here and set by the class name, then I will add my assertion using assert that right, I'm rushing some of these things so that we don't exceed our time. Right, so we have everything here now. I'm going to put a breakpoint in line 48 and 54. Also, you can put a breakpoint anywhere within the feature file. I did explain what breakpoints are used for. So I can now go ahead and run our tests in debug mode. We have error somewhere. Where is this coming from? It cannot be referenced by a project that targets night core. Okay. Let me quickly sort that out. Okay, so that looks okay now. Now, another important thing that we all need to understand about test automation is, depending on the level that you are in, you need to get to a point where you need to be able to figure out the issues that you are having and be able to resolve them as you walk along. That's why I talked about control flow at the very beginning as one of the fundamentals that you'll have to understand as well. So this one is saying invalid argument, file not found. Yes, we know that because I need to copy this file. Let me copy it and paste in here. Okay, so that should be able to work now. Right, so the browser has opened again and navigated, entered all the details. And now can you see it's done everything we want it to do? Now, the only thing remaining now is to click the submit button, which I'm going to step over one after the other. Why is this thing blocking me? Yeah, I'm going to step over and you can see now that it's clicked the submit button and we can see form submitted. So if I continue, click the continue button in Visual Studio, it takes me to the assertion page. So this assertion page now, for me to verify that that text is visible or is the equal to something, all I need to do is I can say var text equals, and I'll copy this locator so that we can see what we are capturing. So I'll save my changes and then I can step over again. Okay, it says no such element, unable to locate. So it's not happy with the locator which I'm using, and I think I know why. Come on. Okay, so what we are going to do is to convert this class name to, let's say, experts, and then put a double forward slash in front of it. And I'll quickly run that again, finally for the last time. But ideally, what we want to do with BDD is we want to be calling methods that are created in the page object. We want to be calling them in either a step definition for each and every step definitions that we've created. So all the actions that we want to perform on the page, they are meant to be coming from the page object. So hence why I quickly showed you page objects in the unit test before we came over here. So I don't have to do it again, just to save us some time. And then I can just press F10 on my keyboard, F10 again. Now, can you see that if I hover my mouse on text, can you see the information that is coming through? It says form submitted, which correspond with form submitted. And then I can now validate, actually do this validation. Let me drag this up a bit because this is going to fail. I didn't change it. So I can just pass text here. And then I'll press F10 again and another F10. Now you can see that the test has passed. And finish off the test. I'll click continue for the test to finish off. So the only thing we didn't add is to close the browser automatically. So I'll just do that quickly. I think that should be it. We don't need to add anything more here. So I can just go ahead and maybe add another step in the feature file and say, and I close the browser. And then quickly, I'm just going to generate this step again by pressing F12, and I can copy it here, go over to the step definition, paste the step definition in here, and I'm just going to type driver.quit here. And then I can run my test from beginning so that I don't have to stop it again. I'll just run it all through for us to see what happened and obviously see that it passed. And that should be it. I'm sorry we don't have enough time to go through these things, hence why there is a dedicated training for this whole thing and for anyone who is interested. But in the meantime, this is all we can cover. I hope you've learned something or taken something out of this. I mean, the whole point of this masterclass is to motivate someone at the end of this year, 2024. So as you're getting into 2025, so you can see something that will motivate you and push you forward to be able to achieve and move up the ladder if you're already working as a manual tester or you're looking for something to challenge you or to change careers. So there we go. I hope we've learned something. Are there any questions? Any questions at all? Thank you. If there is no other questions, can I quickly hand over to Ike for 5 minutes, or if possible, less. I don't want to keep people waiting. If you could tell us quickly about CypherX. If you remember that I mentioned at the beginning that this masterclass is it's organized by myself and partnering with CypherX. I wanted him to quickly just talk about what they do briefly, and for anyone who might be interested. Yeah, Ike, are you still on the call? If you're not okay, cool.
Thanks, Obina, for the opportunity and the competency training. My name is Jake. I'll be speaking about CypherX in place of Ike. I am the project manager at CypherX. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you CypherX, our cutting-edge escrow and financial service solution, designed to bring trust, security, and innovation to your financial transactions. In a world where digital transactions are becoming the norm, CypherX stands as a reliable partner, ensuring peace of mind and seamless financial operations for individuals and businesses alike. Every year, billions are lost to fraud and payment disputes in financial transactions, especially in high-value trades and online marketplaces. Trust between parties has become one of the biggest barriers to conducting secure transactions. As such, we at CypherX, we solve these challenges by providing a secure, efficient, and user-friendly escrow and financial service platform. And here is how we do it. Through our escrow service, funds are securely held until all terms of the transactions are met, ensuring both parties are protected. We have simplified bill payment with a single click by helping users manage expenses seamlessly. And for regions with limited internet access, CypherX enables transactions via USSD, thereby ensuring inclusivity and accessibility. We provide transparency and accountability also through real-time updates and detailed transaction histories, thereby ensuring users are always informed. So why choose CypherX? Well, CypherX is more than just a financial service solution. It's a platform designed to empower users with trust, convenience, inclusivity, and scalability. Therefore, in conclusion, CypherX bridges the gap between trust and technology by delivering a solution that is secured, reliable, and tailored to modern financial needs. Whether you're actually closing a major deal or you're managing recurring payments or even operating in underserved regions, CypherX provides the tools to succeed. Let's build a world where every transaction is safe, fast, and worry through CypherX. Thank you very much.
Very big thank you, Jake, for that short summary. So, for anyone who might be interested in their services, obviously you can reach out to them. I believe some of their informations will be displayed on the video if you want to see it. And the last thing I'm going to show us here is here is my details, my email. If you want to contact me via WhatsApp or via email, to tell me about what your journey, please feel free to contact me. And I do run training programs every year. The next one scheduled for February For anyone who might be interested in a 2-month program, I don't believe in quick, I do know a lot of people run trainings that last for 1 week, 2 weeks. Now, I don't believe in all that. To learn test automation takes a little bit of time. And if you're interested, you can hit me up on that. And these are some of the things we'll be covering: Selenium automation, or Playwright automation, API automation with either REST or Playwright itself, because Playwright has an API package that can allow you to, automate API. And that's it. So if you want to contact me, that's my details over there. And that brings us to the very end of this 3 days masterclass. My delight, having you on the call. I'm very happy to have you on the call, and I do believe and I hope that you might have taken something out of this masterclass. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to cover some of these things in details, but feel free to reach out to me anytime, and I'll be able to offer my help in my own little way as you progress in your journey to becoming an automation tester. So can I use this opportunity again to ask if there is any other questions from anyone, or we are not that many on the call. Do you guys want to go around and introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and what you've gained from this training, and where you see yourself from here? So let's start with Kay. A very quick one. Tell us who you are.
Hi everyone. So my name is Kayode. I'm one of an automation tester. I work as an automation tester, and then also I was trained by Joseph, and very good to know that. And yeah, I started just like everyone on the call, which I don't know anything about automation, but yeah, here I am. I work as an automation tester. I work as I work in a permanent role and contract role as well. So which is very good. So for everyone that is, looking at taking automation as career in the year 2025, you're not making any mistake, to be honest. And myself, I mean, I can speak for myself. I am enjoying it, and then yeah, so it's a good decision. If you're making that decision for 2025, please stick to it, and you will not regret it. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much, Kay. Let's move over to Owen quickly, please.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Owen, and I'm one of Joseph trainee. Currently, I'm an automation tester, and I transitioned from manual to automation. And I and Joseph, we worked together in a couple of places before. And so I like how he works. So he introduced me into more in automation. So ever since, I've been enjoying it. And he's still my mentor up to today. So I've got a couple of times when I'm stuck. The only person I run to is Joseph. So it's just always my savior, So it's a good thing to jump into automation career. It's something you really enjoy. And into 2025, if you want to jump into it, you definitely gain a lot from it. That's it.
Thank you very much, Owen. Thank you for that. Let's quickly go over to Tammy, please.
Hi, hi everyone. My name is Fumilayo Arpsala. Sorry. I would like to change my career to the digital world, and then everything seems to be like a magic, but it seems to me like something I would enjoy in the future. So I would like to be under Mr. Joseph mentorship, and then we see how it goes from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then, Terry, I have a question for the first guy. I don't know, I can't remember his name. Did you start as a manual tester, or you just went straight to being an automated tester?
Yeah, that question is for Kay.
Oh, for me, right? Oh, yeah. So I started as a manual tester, and I mean, I started as manual tester, and which initially, I think what I want to say now might be pointing to a few of us here on the call. I started as manual tester, and initially I was trying to learn with Java and then other languages as well. But all the materials, most of the materials, I won't say all, most of the materials or some of the materials I was trying to use online were not really giving me what I want at the time. So when Joseph started, I ran into an issue. He helped me with it. I'm like, oh, okay. So if you can do this, and then the way he explained it really makes sense to me. So I joined his training, and then to be honest, I didn't regret it at all. So what I was trying to say is that when someone speaks your language, I mean, if you get someone that speaks your language, explain it very well, other than, that would help you before you start using any materials online at all, because it speaks so clearly. And I was able to understand and then run with those information that he gave to me then. And obviously, like Owen said, he still mentored me as well. If I have issues, I still run to him, and also helped me with that, which is one of the things that you will benefit in his training, to be honest, because it's when you get a job, it will be like holding your hand till you stabilize in your job. Is good at that. So I'm not trying to patronize him, you understand, or trying to talk you guys to join his training, but that is the benefit that I am currently enjoying at the moment. So yes, I think that's it. I started as a manual tester and then gradually transitioned into automation, and yeah, the rest is history for now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we go to Emmanuel, please?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Emmanuel. I'm currently a manual tester, and I'm looking to transition into automation. And that's basically hence why I kind of joined the training. So obviously everything was kind of more or less new to me in terms of what Joe was sharing as well. But I mean, it seems like he's a wealth of knowledge. So I'm still looking to definitely proceed and go in that light in 2025. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Can I go to Daniel, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Joe. Yeah, my name is Daniel. Okay, this is the second time I'm joining Joe's class. I think, well, most of the times always distracted because of what I do presently. But I think in the past few days, yesterday and the previous day, I got better clarity. I think it's quite motivating to carry on this path. So I'm thinking of migrating from my present career to software testing, maybe automation as it is. I think from what he's been saying since yesterday, and the classes I joined previously, I can pick the terminologies he's been using, and I think they are coming back to me. So I'm just going to focus on the automation and see how we push it from here. Thank you. So I'm doing a career swap.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dan. Can we go over to Tammy, please? Tammy?
Hi, good evening. Sorry.
Good evening.
My name is Timmy. I'm actually not a developer yet. I'm not a tester. I wanted to see how it was going to be, so that's why I joined the training, and it was quite helpful. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much, Tammy. Over to Tunji.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name is Tunji. For people that have been on the training together, I've been on so many training with Joe because I used to call him Big Joe because he's been helpful. He's my mentor from the beginning, and doing this master class with him. Yeah, whenever I want to have any training, I always be opportunity to be there. You always learn a new thing. You know, I'm an automation tester. So you look at what we learned with that the database connection using Selenium. So I think it'll be quite helpful. So for anyone who really want to enjoy their automation testing, I think the answer is Big Joe. So and is a good mentor. Whenever you call him, he'll always be there to help. You know, I've never seen any day that Joe will tell you that, oh, sorry, I can't do this. He will always be there to help people. So for new people, please just be there, attend the training, and you really enjoy the training. Thank you so much, Big Joe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tunji. And the last, I believe we still have 2 other people, but let me go to Gratitude quickly, please. Gratitude, can you tell us who you are? Or we can move over to Ike. If Ike is on the call, I believe Jake spoke for you earlier on. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ike. I believe that brings us to the very end. You've all heard from Jake before. So that brings us to the very end. Is Gratitude okay to talk now? Yeah, I can see you're trying to unmute. No? Okay, so let's call it a day. A very big thank you once again, and a very big apologies for holding you guys up until this very moment. I mean, it's a great delight to have you guys here. Tunji, you've got your hands raised.
Yeah, Big Joe, have you already pushed the